Welcome back. You're watching Sunday edition. Let's now take a look at, welcome to the final 30 minutes of the program this morning. Before we get into those national delegates conventions yesterday, let's wrap up the issue about the youth, the young generation, new crop of political leaders coming through to the front. I want to take or hit out at your party, ODM. There's a gentleman we've hosted here on the show. It's called Gabriel Bukachi, aka Chapia Chapia, and was given the certificate to be the Senate candidate for Jubilee. But following that NDC by ODM on Friday, they did announce that one Edwin Sifuna will be flying the ODM flag in Nairobi for the Senate seat. I remember he had just lost the Kandui parliamentary nomination. So let me start with you. It's your party. What gives there? Chapia Chapia says he has a certificate. So
very good.
What gives?
Well, I think I personally attended the special NDC at Kasarani. And of course, you know that Chapia Chapia said whatever he had said about, getting the endorsement to run for Nairobi. But again, when the NDC, Sifuna came in as, the designate who has been nominated to run for Senate in Nairobi. One thing I think we must be able to point out is that, we have several ways of elections or actually choosing our candidates. One of them being that we got the primaries, and have people in the primaries, and whoever wins then becomes that. But again, within our ODM constitution, you can also go for direct nomination. And depending on the qualities of somebody, because remember, as a political party, the cardinal responsibility is to win. So we will be very happy as ODM to be able to see that we deliver Nairobi to our party, and of course, by extension, to NASA.
Would that be really democratic?
Well, analysts would talk about democracy. Democracy, you can talk about anything about it. But like I said, again, you need to look at what the constitution of the party says. So again, remember that we have what is called our tribunal, which is supposed to look at this thing. So if Chapia Chapia feels aggrieved, then of course you should be able to take this to the ODM tribunal, and this can be looked into. But I think just to take you back, what we are saying here is that as a party, we would want to have as many seats delivered to the party as possible. So of course, looking at both candidates, you look at the strength of each one of them, and also look at our opponents. Jubilee have a very strong young candidate, and we've just been discussing about the youth, who is actually the Senate designate for Nairobi, and that is Johnson Sakaja. You would want to get a candidate on our side that then can be able to have a head-to-head with Johnson Sakaja, who has tried actually to use the media to build his profile. So from where we sit, I think as a party and as a coalition, we feel probably Sifuna can stand a better chance to be able to square it out
with
Sakaja.
Sakaja. Abraham, what's your take on this?
Ben, I really think that ODM has a lot to learn, and they still have a long way to go. And they should learn a little bit from Jubilee Party. See, the idea of nominating somebody and giving them a direct ticket just because you feel that person is going to be a better opponent to or opponent to the other party is not fair, and it's not democratic. Democracy says let the people choose, give them the opportunity, even if they give you the worst of the worst, let them, because it's their choice. But what ODM has done in the last few days or the last few weeks is they sit down, a few individuals sit down as the leadership of the party and say, we think so and so will be stronger than so and so, so we are going to give them a direct nomination. Regardless of what the electorate is going to do, they are not going to change it. So I think if they go this route and continue to do the same by giving direct nomination to individuals just to run against Jubilee, they are going to lose, and they are going to lose anyway. They know that. They know they're going to lose, and they are ready to lose. But it's against the democratic rights of a nation to just give somebody. And of course, the party has its own rules and regulation. But according to me, if they take this route, sooner or later, ODM or NASA itself is going to be a party of dictators, a party of individuals who comes and says so and so is going to be the nominee, is going to be the flag bearer, and then they leave. But that's why you see, Ben, most of the people are moving to Jubilee. The stronger candidates are going to Jubilee because they are. And I really, like I said earlier, we give credit to Jubilee because of what they have done.
Yesterday, Jubilee was parading the same people you've been parading for the last 1 year as defectors.
Ben, allow me to quickly say something.
This must. Yeah. Let me ask: is it fair for somebody like Chapia Chapia to be, talked to be appeased, given something here and there, to let to step down for Sifuna?
Yes, let me start by responding to what Kiru has indicated, that you need to have a free, fair, credible elections. And I'm not aware whether there was a presidential primary for Jubilee. So people sat in a boardroom and said President Kenyatta deserves a second term. And I'm not holding brief for ODM. But ODM, as Mamai has indicated in the constitution, they say they have got two options. Either you can go through an election or consensus. Now, what is very loose is a consensus. And their consensus would be what the Prime Minister, or rather, what Mr. Raila Odinga thinks of something. And when you try to analyze the persona of Chapia and Sifuna, and then you bring in Sakaja to the equation, if you put Chapia and Sakaja in this forum for a debate, I suspect Chapia may have a challenge. He's an IC expert. He doesn't have the public speaking skills like Sakaja has polished. And Sakaja has got a very superior understanding of policy issues in Kenya, given that he's been in the National Assembly for some time, and he's even come up with many pieces of legislation. And as Mamai has indicated, the primary interest of Mr. Raila Odinga and ODM is to get as many seats as possible. And if in their view they think, if you get Sifuna, who lost in Kandui, if you bring it to Nairobi and you tell him to run on the NASA infrastructure, that he can give Sakaja a bit of competition, so be it. If I was in the Prime Minister's, or rather if I was in Raila's position, I would have taken the same decision. And then look for Chapia, maybe nominate him to the county assembly and, give him a check for the amount of resources he spent, and then you make progress. Because politics as it is not a fair game. If you're looking for a fair game, then go to the Vatican to go and elect the Pope.
I think if I may chip in, and probably weigh on this issue. One, you have democracy that wants to be defined selectively, because democracy as it is a system of governance where the power to lead is with the people. So they have the choice, the free will to choose. But you also need to stretch it further and understand that you're not given that power permanently. You're given that power for a period of time from which you need to come back again and seek that power. And Chapia, for instance, was given that ticket without any nomination, So he didn't go through any nomination. There was no will of the people. Yes. So the process that actually settled on him is the same process that has settled on Edwin Sifuna. But let me say this. The time between which he was given that ticket and now, what has he done as a senatorial candidate for ODM? And I think from where I see it, he's done absolutely nothing. So from the contest between Chapia and Honorable Sakaja, you could actually tell that Sakaja was automatically a Senate-elect. And because ODM was a political party, and I don't hold any brief for them, is in the contest of gaining power, having as many legislators as possible, I think they had a responsibility to do something. Maybe the manner in which they did it may not please everyone, because at some point they toyed with the idea of giving it to Anthony Kibagendi, then they realized that cases are not as many as lawyers in Nairobi, and they gave it to Sifuna. So there's a lot of calculation there, that this is a lawyer going to face a lawyer, and then this is a big party with infrastructure. We need an articulate lawyer who can then handle Sakaja. And I think by and large, if you agree to a process that gives you a nomination certificate without facing the primaries, then you should not have a problem if the same people who made that decision to give you, take it away and give it somebody else.
Ben, allow me to make a point that for Chapia, he was not given a direct nomination. He's the only person who applied for that position. So he found himself alone in the race and he got the ticket.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we cannot blame him for being unopposed, just like Kidero.
All right. I want us to leave it there in terms of the young leadership this country. Maybe Sakaja versus Sifuna.
A few days ago, before the entry of Sifuna, I think Sakaja was just like my printing his business cards for the Senate. But I think with Sifuna, he now has to go back to the drawing table. Unfortunately for Sifuna, he'll not even be riding on his own brand. He'll be hanging around Kidero. Wherever Kidero is meeting the ethnic votes, he'll be around, and then he'll tell him, I'll assist you speak my mother tongue to concretize the Luya vote. That's the only thing he brings to the table.
Sakaja will be the next senator for this county, that's for sure. He understands the policies, of course.
You didn't say anything outside that.
No. He understands the policies. And of course, the coming in of the nominated senator will not make a difference. It will not make a difference. The Jubilee now in the city of Nairobi has numbers. They do have the numbers. They will deliver. And I believe his experience and the numbers of the Luya community as well in the city will make a difference, and Sakaja will just go easily.
But allow me to make a point.
As it stands, between ODM and Jubilee, who has the better numbers? According to 2013, it would say it's ODM.
Yeah, and that has been further complicated by the messed up Jubilee primaries in Starehe, because we are told, and even admitted on TV, Maina Kamanda, that he engaged in an act of voter imports. He brought so many people to Nairobi. Now that he's not on the ticket, he's not running for any position, I'm not sure whether he will wake up on August 8th early in the morning to go get the voters he said to have registered from Buranga, from Kiambu, wherever, bring them to Nairobi. I don't know whether he's got that incentive.
All right. What do you think, the two gentlemen, Sifuna versus Sakaja?
I think, Ben, Sakaja is a very good friend of mine. So is Sifuna. Sifuna, in any case, is my neighbor. You know, I come from Teso North, and Teso North and Ngoma, you know, we are actually neighbors. These are two great gentlemen. By their own right, they have their own strength. They are very good debaters. Even if it comes to policy matters, we are going to actually see very interesting times. And each one will actually try and, you know, galvanize their support.
Yes.
And I think, as my colleague mate rightfully points it, is that this support that they galvanize will also be the same support that the governors, you know, and the ruling coalition, and of course NASA will also be galvanizing. So we are going to see very interesting times, and we are going to see very strong candidates, even if you bring them to a national television. I think the debate is going to be very interesting. And to me, since they are both my friends, I think the best is just to wish each one of them the best, and may the best candidate win. I think for that one, that's what I can say, since they are both my friends. But I'm endorsing my ODM candidate, who in this case is basically my neighbor, Sifuna, so I wish him all the best.
All right. Who lost in Kanduri?
I think it's going to be a very close race. I wouldn't say who will come on top, but I think the pendulum right now swings towards Sakaja for the simple reason that he has a track record. He has run a very efficient campaign. He has a team that has been working with him. They actually know his strong points, and that is what they are selling. For Sifuna, I don't think he has a lot of political capital to flaunt around and tell people that this is what I've done to counter what Sakaja has. The reason why he's been brought on board is largely on ethnic grounds, and the fact that he's from the same tribe as Sakaja, a little bit more eloquent compared to what ODM had initially. So I would still feel that Nairobi the senator would go to Jubilee, governor would remain with ODM.
But Ben, in this race for Nairobi Senate with Sakaja and Sifuna, that's when we are going to see tribalism at its best. Because people will ask Sifuna, where do you come from? You're a Luya man. From which Luya community? He'll probably say Bukusu. Then they'll go to Sakaja. They say, you're saying you're a Luya man. Where exactly do you come from? He'll say, I'm Sabaot. Then they'll be required to speak their mother tongues. And then at that stage, Sakaja's name, which doesn't identify him with any particular block, would easily become a disadvantage.
Ah, great. Interesting. We shall be keeping an eye on those races, especially the Nairobi senatorial race. We shall bring the two of them in studio for our debates. Let's now, as we wind up, where we started when we were taking a look at the political pages, Uhuru and Ruto endorsed for second term. We did talk about those 5 national delegates conventions by Mandeleo Chap, which was attended by Uhuru at 11:46. At 1:30, he was at the Kenya National Delegates Conference. At 2:25, he was in Kasarani for the KANU, where he said Ndani. Then at 3, he was at Nyayo for the Economic Freedom Party. And then, of course, before making his way to the Bomas of Kenya. What are the final thoughts on this? Let me start with you, Hesbon. Where does this leave Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, who was also endorsed by his party on Friday and, of course, by the National Super Alliance 2 weeks ago? As we speak today, 92 days to the elections, where are these two gentlemen?
I think after the NDCs, it's clear that these two gentlemen are in a very tight race. They're both in a pedestal that they've never been before. Uhuru has support that I don't think he has realized ever before. Raila is coming a re-energized presidential candidate with a little bit of support from where he did get support the last time round. And this is a good thing for Kenyans, because moving forward, what we are going to see is not an emotive campaign, but a campaign that is going to be based on issue. And for Jubilee, I would want to imagine that moving forward, they will not tell us what their manifesto has. They will focus on what they've done and what they are going to do. in order to sell themselves, which means Kenyans will have an opportunity to have ideas that are contending to make a decision. And for NASA and the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga, I think the pedestal is already set. The other thing is now to have the same message cascaded down so that, they've had this idea that they need to guard the votes, which is a good thing, that you need to ensure that the electoral process, the tallying process is good. But from where I see it, they need to start now telling us the reason why they should be voted in the first place so that they guard those votes.
All right. Willis Ochola is calling us from right here in Nairobi. Willis, good morning. And what is your take on what we're discussing this morning?
Good morning, Ben, and the panel, the fine gentlemen.
Yes.
What I want to add is about Uhuru and Raila in their so-called rematch.
Okay.
And what I think is Uhuru will most likely be re-elected. Brother Kirwa is too ambitious when he says 70+1. I think it's going to be 55-45. And then NASA and Raila will go through a transition. Actually see NASA as a transition ticket. I think NASA turnout, what American politics says, GOTV, get out the vote, is so depressed. NASA voters have been disappointed in 2007, 2013. So the get out the vote for NASA will be affected. And personally, I think it's a transition ticket. When Raila loses, and from August 15th, we'll have a strong opposition, and I think that's when there'll be changes in this country.
Why do you think President Uhuru Kenyatta will be re-elected? What's the main reason for that?
I think they're very good on PR. They're very good in some of the things that they've done. And they get out the vote. You see, Jubilee voters are voting against somebody. They're not necessarily voting for Uhuru. They are voting against Raila, the Kalenjin, the Kikuyu, and even the guys, the parties that Uhuru is under. They're voting against Raila.
All right. Dismas here is disagreeing with you. Dismas, why are you shaking your head?
I'm shaking my head because of some of the statements he's made. When you look at our politics, from multi-party politics, we never go to the polls to vote for somebody. We vote against something. Like the last election, Kenyans were voting against ICC. You remember then Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto had so many prayer rallies, and they said, if you don't vote for us, then you are going to be recolonized again. This time, ICC is not an issue. And within NASA, you have two game changers. You have Musalia Mudavadi, and you have Governor Isaac Ruto. But more important, you have the issue of corruption. And this is where the concept of family and friends coming in. There have been so many scandals around corruption, and I suspect if Mamai was honest with us, he'll tell us they intend to discuss corruption. And then the cost of living. Because majority of Kenyans are saying today, are you better off 4 years later? Are you able to afford ugali? Are you able to afford milk? Are you able to afford unga? And Kenyans are beginning to realize that, in fact, the leadership you put in place affects your bank balance. It affects the cost of living. It affects the kitchen table economics. Because right now, majority of Kenyans, even in the middle class, cannot afford to have 3 square meals a day. A few days ago, I saw a documentary of a lady who says in Kibera, who is now forced to take ile chai inaitwa siturungi, black tea without sugar. Now, is that that kind of person, would you go tell him that, wait a minute, we've got a Jubilee administration, has been very good, and elect him? And then, of course, there are people who say that a Jubilee has delivered on development issues, and you are told, if you want to confirm, go to the portal. But in other economies, when the economy is growing, you actually feel it in your pocket. Right? And another thing, before I finish, development is very disruptive.
Yes.
Like if you stay on Ngong Road, you can actually see a road coming up. And if indeed there were so many roads coming up through the nation, then everybody would be seeing that kind of disruption. The cost of living should have come significantly lower so that people can say Jubilee has delivered. So in Kenya, it's always a protest vote. So people will be voting for Raila Odinga, or rather people who want to vote for Raila Odinga will be voting for him, not because they love Raila Odinga, but because they're getting a call from their relationship manager from the bank who is saying, wait a minute, there's a problem with your mortgage. A number of companies have been relocating from Kenya. If the economy was growing, why would a fast-moving consumer company close shop in Kenya and go to another part of the world, maybe go to South Africa or Zimbabwe? So those are some of the economic reasons we'll be considering. And for the longest time, even political analysts have said, wait a minute, Kenyans are not very sharp to join the dots. But from the party primaries, we have seen that Kenyans are actually able to join the dots. They can tell that if you have a good leader, there's a very high chance that you're going to achieve your, your aspirations as a citizen.
Thank you, Dismas. And thank you, Willis. Willis Ochola was calling us from right here in Nairobi. What do you say to what Dismas is saying?
I don't agree with what Dismas has said. The biggest mistake that NASA did, and that is when they handed over the election to Jubilee, is allowing Raila Amolo Odinga to be the flag bearer. See, he has tried and he has done so many times. And he has not changed the narrative. He had an opportunity at one time as a prime minister to make so many changes, which he did not. He has given so many promises that he has not fulfilled. At some point, the electorate gets tired because you bring back the same story, the same promises, the same, that when you go in, you're going to make this, you're going to make this, you're going to make this. But looking back and looking at the electorate, that has totally changed. They are becoming younger, they are becoming smarter, they are willing to bring a difference. How are you going to make a difference with a candidate who has tried so many times, getting older, with no new ideas? Whereas you look at the party has totally changed. Look at Jubilee, younger, smarter. They have so many ideas. And you look at what they have accomplished in these 5 years. People and the electorate agrees with them that surely the infrastructure has improved. The standard of living has improved in Kenya. So much has happened. So I want to tell you for sure, I know that we are going in, but we'll come back here after, the day after, and the Uhuru Kenyatta will be the president.
Ben, allow me to make one point.
It will happen.
You cannot allow
30
Kirwa,
seconds only.
Yeah, you cannot allow Kirwa to get away with murder. Yesterday, I saw President Kenyatta blaming Raila Odinga for the high cost of unga, saying that if Raila had done what he was supposed to do 4 years ago, we wouldn't be having a unga crisis in Kenya. But maybe I've missed some sections of the Kenyan history. Raila Odinga has never been president of Kenya to implement his agenda.
As a prime minister,
as a prime minister, he was under President Kibaki. He's never been president for a day so that you can actually judge him. So this false narrative that is coming from Jubilee, that the Raila has been around for a long time, is a lie. If anything, President Kenyatta was born at State House, so he's been around for all this time. So he's supposed to deliver. And then in the Nusu Mukata administration, who was the Minister for Finance? Who was the Minister for Trade? Who was the Deputy Prime Minister? Who was Minister for Agriculture? Who was Minister for Higher Education?
Interesting. Mamai, your final thoughts?
My final thoughts,
yes.
I think number one is, I'm an ICT expert. And there's what you call data science. You can never go wrong with numbers. We know which numbers that you're looking at, that for the NASA coalition, we are 10 million plus.
Where is that 10 million strong?
10 million plus. I heard yesterday, I think, from the Jubilee side also say, and this you can see, you could actually see what Honorable Duale was actually alluding to yesterday. Because of the fear of the numbers that NASA have, you heard the Honorable Duale saying they are also going to do what? To guard their votes. What message is he telling you? That indeed their votes actually are not there. And if you look at the numbers, and we are actually asking IEBC to publish these numbers. But from our actually zones, which we call the NASA zones, we are 10 million plus. And I want to agree with the caller who made his call. I think what he said is that the challenge probably that we might have as NASA is what you call the get out the vote, what you call the GOTV. So as NASA, I think one of our key strategies is actually to go back to mashinani. And we are telling all our candidates that as you go to do the campaigns, the key thing is to be able to tell each and every one of our voters to actually get out and vote. The moment that is accomplished, then believe you me, that we'll actually be able to trust. Even this element of saying 70 plus 1%, where are you basing it on? What is the basis of this 70 plus 1? So to me, I think this is the time for Raila Amolo Odinga to be our 5th president of this country. And from the numbers that you are seeing, this is going to happen. And we believe that our Jubilee people will now be able to have a strong opposition to lead us to the next step.
Thank you, Mamai. Thank you, gentlemen. That's where we leave it. That's all we have time for. Dismas Makua, Abraham Kirwa, Lawi Mamai, and Hezbon Owila. Thank you so much for a very fruitful, very good discussion for the last 2 hours or so. That's where we leave it. On Sunday edition, this Sunday morning, Kenya's premier and the only Sunday morning political show. Be sure to join us every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon as we dissect the big political issues in the run-up to this year's general election. Today, exactly 92 days to the August 8th general election. I'm Ben Kitili. Bye for now. As always, we leave you with Siasa Files.